understand them. I grew up in that culture as well. My mom is Russian and stuff.
Hmm.
So it's not really that that they're so unbelievably stupid that they don't understand that the war is happening, or that the consequence of the war. Like, I think the guy you watched said, like, it's a good dude. He like collects stuff for Ukraine, but he said something like that they can't comprehend that war was happening. That's not true.
Yeah,
They know that it's happening. They just don't care.
sure.
They have this like mentality that basically, like, even there was like this big blogger in Russia who said, "Why are you bombing Moscow? Bomb Tuapse." Like, Tuapse is another city in Russia that we have been bombing because there's a big factory there. It's just to understand the logic. Imagine an American being like, "Why is this? I don't know. Why you like nobody bombs you, but try to imagine, I guess." And you'll be like, "Why are you bombing New York? Bomb Los Angeles?" It's just that's the kind of solidarity that they have. It's kind of like non-existent. Like,
Hmm.
in Moscow and St. Petersburg are like the same, like, hyper sanctuaries of like all the valid people, and all the people outside of those two cities are basically invalid, useless, kind of like nobody cares, right? So that's why they can tolerate million plus casualties, right? That they got here. People like, how can they tolerate? Like, Americans lose their minds when they're like 3 soldiers die or some shit, like, right? And Russia seemingly don't care that million plus people have been injured and killed right
Yeah,
now, right?
yeah,
That's because that's not really people from Moscow or St. Petersburg. It's the people from some fucking Syktyvkar far away. Nobody cares, right? So it's kind of like that mentality. So that's why they're so shocked that it actually, like, not that it affected Russia, but it affected them, the people in those cities, right? And
hmm,
they'd be like, there was one girl who filmed a video. I watched it like 10 times. She was like crying and shaking and shit, and she was like, why are you dragging Moscow into the war between Russia and Ukraine?
nice.
I was like, what a queen! Absolute queen. She doesn't even like, in her mind, it's like, what did my Moscow do? Right? Never mind that refinery sponsors 40% of their fleet flying bombing us, obviously, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's just very, very, very. It's a weird stuff. It's a weird society,
I
like
kind of wonder
weird
sometimes,
culture.
especially from like a U.S. perspective. Obviously, you can never force it, but like having some kind of mandatory like 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 10 citizen draft or something for every military conflict you're in. I don't like sometimes that countries can engage in war and like the average citizen has no idea. And for the US, it's been like that
Uh,
since at least Vietnam.
yeah,
Like even for Iraq,
Vietnam
I
was our
like
have.
last draft, right?
yeah, but like yeah, even for Iraq,
Yeah,
like we were in war and we saw things on TV, but it was still like pretty distant from most Americans since we don't have to fight anything on our homeland ever. Yeah, that does get a little bit annoying to me, especially when the other nation is like almost engaged in like fucking total war, right? Where like every part of your daily existence in Ukraine, especially the further east you live. But I mean, I imagine even in Kiev and stuff is like you're at war and it feels like it every day. But then for the country at war with you, like 80% of their population like doesn't really feel it at all. It's very frustrating to me. Yeah.
dude, I have so much to say, but I don't want to be like awful right now. But this is like one of the most triggering things because we were invaded and we are suffering the consequences. So the war is always here.
Hmm.
It's always on our land. Our people are conscripted. I'm not like some American loser who would be like, "Oh, conscription is slavery," not that. But still, it's the conscription is happening of the people who are defending themselves, right? There is no conscription in Russia. It's payment.
Yeah.
They're doing this for very huge sums of money. By their standards, it's like the biggest money they could ever earn, unironically, right?
Hmm.
It's like absolutely unsustainable sums of money that actually hurt Russia quite a bit. But that's how they pay them off to do this stuff, right? And it's so unfair that most of those people live their lives and it's absolutely untouchable. Like, it doesn't touch them at all, and they're the perpetrators, right? So the attitude towards war of people like that is so different. Like in America as well, people are like, I don't think that people like understand war at all, to be honest. They're like, it's so detached. It's always in some sort of stun, I don't know, Afghanistan or whatever, right? It's some sort of like Vietnam or wherever the fuck it is. It's like always so like far away in some weird barbarian land on another continent. It's like people still protested, obviously, right? The war, like in Vietnam and stuff like that. It's
Hmm.
not to say that people didn't do anything about it, but it's just that it's so far away and it's so kind of like